is to get information to the frontal lobe. All right. That means it's essential to start off with a warmer. Everyone teaching should start off with a warmer. Also, here's another side note that I want to mention. There's a difference between, as we say, a teacher and an educator, but there's also a difference between educators, teachers, and instructors.
And instructors.
Okay, an instructor is normally teaching a skill. So an instructor's approach is, because I was thinking about this when about something you said yesterday or the day before. An instructor will teach as if the students don't know anything.
Okay.
For the most part, not all the time, but for the most part. So, like for instance, I'm a firearm instructor, right? So when I teach people how to shoot, I basically approach it like they know nothing. I teach them from zero. Okay. Now I don't do that as an educator because it's two different things. And when you're instructing, that's normally a set short block of instruction. Okay, I'm gonna teach you how to change the oil. This is going to be a 2 hour class. By the end of the class, you're going to follow the procedures and do every step by step, in changing oil, right? From really basic to advanced. I'm gonna show you step by step. And at the end of the course, in order to get the certificate or whatever, you have to show me step by step that you can do. That's different than what we do in the classroom.
Okay.
Okay. What we do in the class, so instruction is a straight line. Boom, boom, right? Teaching and learning is a wiggly line. It's all over the place. Now, I'm not going to say in instruction we still don't do a learner profile. We still should do a warmer, right? Those things are still important. However, um, these are these are not these are skill based. It's about proficiency. So in an instruction, when you're instructing someone or something, you're going to give them a proficiency test. You're not going to give them an achievement test.
It's
see?
profession.
So for instance, if I'm teaching you how to drive, right, at the end of the instruction, to make sure you learn, I'm going to give you a proficiency test, right? I'm going to make sure that you can drive on the road, that you can park, that you can parallel park, that you know how to change the gears, that you put your seatbelt on, that you know when you come to a four-way stop sign, you know you look both ways, you know who to get the right of way to, right? You know how to change lanes, right? Proficiency, and normally in proficiency is what? Whether you did it or you didn't do it, right? Whether you did it or you didn't do it, go, no go, right? In a classroom, we don't give proficiency tests, or we shouldn't. All right. In a classroom, in a school setting, we don't do proficiency. We do achievement.
Okay.
All right. We want to know how much you have grown, and the success. The success may be at what level you've grown. Remember, we said yesterday that you might not. If I'm teaching about World War II, I don't need second grader or third grader or fourth grader to know every aspect of World War II. I need them to know the basic things, and each year I'm going to build upon that. Right. Each grade level, as we address World War II, I'm going to go up balloons. I'm going the level of the rigor, right, and how in depth we get, the questions we ask are going to be age appropriate. Because when we talked about SMART yesterday, remember the A stands for what?
Attainment,
Attainable,
achievement.
right? Attainable or achievable, right? That's probably, all of them are important, but attainable and achievable, I think that's one of the elements of SMART that people don't really understand, right? Attainable means whether it's appropriate, whether it's age appropriate, whether the learner has the capability, the capacity to really meet that expected outcome, right? Right. So again, I'm not going to ask a first grader to solve a calculus problem. unless that first grader has deemed to be a genius in math, right? That's an unrealistic expectation. That's for most the average first grader that is not attainable, right? So so I wanted to make that point also that instructors are different than teachers are different than educators. Okay, an instructor. So you are right because I was thinking about this yesterday. You are right. Whoever said that teach them as if they don't know anything. That is from an instructor's point of view. An instructor again is a person who's teaching a specific skill. All right, and this is where it gets really cloudy because some teachers in a school will think that they're instructors. Well, you're in a school, you're not an instructor. You're an educator, right? So then what happens is we get into things like the grammar trap. Well, I'm going to teach you I'm going to teach you grammar. And you do this, and this is a subject verb agreement, and and this and that, and the tense, and you don't split your and they try to teach it in a very like as if it's instruction. Well, it is instruction, but as if they're instructors, as if it's a short course, a short 2-hour course, a 2-day course, and they get a certificate at the end. No. No. This is why I say we should do not teach grammar. This is one reason why I say no language arts teacher should teach grammar. We point out grammar points. That's why I said, remember I said, put it on the board and then point it out as you go. But don't have a 45-minute lesson on grammar. Because grammar is not, because what happens is you go into instructor mode and then you're trying to check the proficiency of the learner on grammar, and that's not the point of grammar. The point of grammar is not proficiency. The point of grammar is coherency. And coherency is a lot more complicated than proficiency. Because you can know all the grammar you want in the world and be a terrible writer. Because writing is not about grammar. It's about communicating a coherent thought. And grammar allows us to make sure that our thoughts are coherent, that we have brevity. It helps with brevity. It helps us be cogent, right? So when we make grammar points, we're making grammar points to help the learner with their coherency. We teach a grammar, or we make grammar points to help with brevity of thought, right? To make sure that complex ideas are communicated in a way where people can consume them well. Okay? This is an argument. This is Dr. Ray's argument and why teachers should not teach grammar, because then you turn into an instructor. If you're in a school and it's pedagogy, you're not an instructor. That's why we have something called learning off the curriculum or cross-curricular learning, meaning in an ideal learning scenario, you will team teach. You have the math teacher with the language arts teacher, with the history teacher, with the PE teacher, with the art teacher, with all the subjects, and you guys sit down and you discuss how you're going to execute. Remember we talked about yesterday the yearly plan. How are we going to execute your yearly plan collaboratively? Right? And then what happens is you will set context together. Right? So you guys, when you guys are creating your units, right? You guys get together. All right, guys, what is the destination? What is our destination as a group for these third graders? Right? So we do this in July, right? Or June. Or we don't even wait till the school year is over. We do this before the school year ends for the next school year. All right, guys, whoever's in Team Alpha, all right, Team Alpha for third graders, all right, the leader goes, all right, what is going to be our destination for this group for next year? All right, guys, let's look at your standards. I look at my standards for language arts. You look at your standards for math. You look at your standards for history, and we combine. We had a cartoon in America called Transformers, right? The Transformer movie, the movie The Transformers, right? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? The movie The Transformers. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, when I was growing up, there was an actual cartoon, right? And the Transformers, they combine to become what? One big.
Yeah, giant.
So they can operate individually, but they're much more stronger when they operate as one. Hence, cross-curricular learning. Most schools don't do it because they don't know how to do it because they're not educators. There's a bunch of teachers or instructors. See, an instructor doesn't care about cross-curricular anything. He's there, she's there to teach a specific skill. In and out, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. That's not what we do in schools. Right? So in an ideal scenario, we team teach, and then we think about all those things that we've talked about, and then we set the context. So therefore, if little Ray Roberts, 8 years old, right, sitting in the class, and Ray Roberts, let's say they're going over, let's say the context, the unit is things that are round, right? So in language arts class, they read a story about balloons, right? In science class, they talk about the planets. There you go, perfect. They talk about the planets in the solar system and how all these celestial bodies are round. And in math class, what are they doing? The circumference of a circle, the radius of a circle, right? In gym class, they're doing something with a ball. Now, why is this important? Because if Ray Roberts, 8th grade, is sitting in the class and he loves math, but he hates language arts, he can get a language arts, he can understand a language arts concept through the math class because it all click. Right? So he's sitting in language arts class. I don't understand that. But then, because they're doing the same context, when the math teacher comes in to talk about the radius of a circle, she says something that the English teacher said, the language arts teacher said, and now it clicks for me because she said it in a math way, and I'm a math guy. Oh, that's what the English teacher was talking about. Oh, I get it now. If he's a science guy, oh, that's what the history teacher was talking about. I get it now, right? Because that's iteration, right? Dr. Diane Lawson Friedman, chaos theory. That's iteration. And not only is that iteration, that's teaching the students how to be adaptable. That you can't just be good at math. I'm just good at math. No, you got to be good at math. You got to be good at language arts. You got to be, because that's going to make you what? A universal person, a universal thinker, a lifelong learner, being interested in many things, right? A Renaissance man, right? Okay. So this is ideally how it would work. In order for this to happen, you got to have a bunch of people who are educators. Teachers don't want to hear that. Teachers want to go in their classroom, right? Ray. Teachers want to turn the stove off for me, please. Teachers want to go in their classrooms, right? And they want to be in their own little bubble. They want to take all the papers, They want to go in the supply room, get all the pencils, all the cool stuff, right? And they want to be in, and they close the door, and they want to be in their own little world, and they want to say, "I'm the best teacher in the school. I did this. I did this with my students. I did that with my students. No, you should do it like this because I did it with my class, and they all did well, right? That person never collaborates with anyone, right? There's a guy named Dr. John Hattie, Australian researcher, educational researcher. I don't wonder if he's. I wonder if he's still doing. I got to check for this year, for last year. He has something called visible learning. Visible learning, right? And what he has done over the last 20 years or so is he takes all the He takes all the different aspects of learning. Can you turn the stove off for me? All right. He takes all. Did you move the pot to the side for me with the pot holder? He takes all the aspects of learning: homework, classwork, smart objectives, everything that all the little concepts of teaching and learning. Right? He he takes and he researches them to see how valuable they are. Are they really effective? And there's the hinge side. The hinge. This is research talk. The hinge effect is point 4. So anything that is point 4, he says. One second. All right. So where was I? I lost my train of thought.
We're talking about some
Oh,
educators.
yeah. So John Hattie has something called visible learning, right? And what Hattie says is he looks at I think it's like 200 something just variables, and he looks to see what things that we do in a classroom that actually works. It's pretty cool. Maybe I'll show it to you in a couple of minutes to see what actually works in a classroom.
Okay.
All right, things like homework. Let me ask you a question. Homework, does it fall above or below that hinge point of point 4? What do you think?
I think it should be.
As effective. Remember, the hinge point says it's pretty effective, right? It's effective enough that you should do.
I think homework is below.
It's below.
Some
There's a
of
lot
them-
of research. There's a lot of research that has stated that.
Some of them are not being done by the students.
Well, it's not even that if you can't really do it in the classroom, you can't get it done in your instruction. What do you think's going to happen when they get home? They're going to be just as confused when they get home.
Exactly.
So is it the best thing to do with them in class?
Yeah. So you have some schools that are no homework schools. Yeah, there are some schools in Saudi like Buckswood. They're no homework schools because they're going by the research saying that homework is. I'm not going to call. Listen, I'm not going to call it a waste of time, and I'm not going to say that homework has no value. It's just that the research has found that it has less value. It has less value. And for some of the reasons that you said, mom and dad ends up doing the homework. The tutor ends up doing the homework. They use AI to do the homework. They get so it's better to have engaging instruction in the classroom. If you can't conduct it in the classroom, don't send it home as homework. That doesn't mean you don't ask the students to try things and do experiments and do things like this. But typically, homework on Hattie's visible learning scale is below. It's not that much below, if memory serves me correct, but it's still below the point 4, which means it's not as effective, right? What do you think? Summer vacation, does that help or hurt Is that below the hinge point or above the hinge point?
Summer vacation?
Mm-hmm.
It should be below.
Way below. It's in the red. So when you see for summer vacation, it's in the red, meaning it's detrimental. Like any break away from instruction is detrimental. So you hear a lot of people will say that COVID was really detrimental because students weren't able to go to school, yada yada yada. And then we know, I want to make this as a point too. Online learning was never designed for young people. Okay? Online learning was never designed for young people. Never designed for young people. Okay? The online learning is for people, mainly adults, who are, you heard this before the first day, self-determined, self-regulated, and self-efficient. Okay? So basically, online learning was designed for people who, maybe like yourselves, who they have a goal in mind, right? They are motivated. We're going to talk about motivation tomorrow. And they are motivated.
For adults.
For basically adult learners, or learners who are highly motivated. Highly motivated. So the reality is, based on the research, we should never have learners online. It really is not an effective. It's not an effective mode of teaching and learning. That is why when you see many online programs, like homeschool programs that are online, it is asynchronous, not synchronous. Do you know what I mean by asynchronous?
Can you explain, please?
Asynchronous means that the school will put the work on a board, like the Google Classroom, and the students, the learners, go to the classroom whenever they are ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Synchronous means, okay, you have to be online at 9:00. The teacher's there, and the teacher attempts to teach as if they're in the classroom. That doesn't work for, well, synchronous learning doesn't work. It's not very effective. Even with self-determined, self-efficient, self-regulated learners. It is much better for the learning to be asynchronous. Let the learner go when they are ready, prepared to engage the information and content. And you have resources. The LMS will have resources for the learner to support the learner in the lecture. And then if there's questions, the learner can always reach out to the teacher, the instructor, the professor, the lecturer for additional clarification, or that course would have online support like videos, PDFs that will better support the content online. Okay? Asynchronous learners for K to 12 is nonsense. We do that because of what I said on the first day. He who makes the goal, well, the golden rule, right? Who has the goal makes the rules, right? So parents, government says, look, the kids got to do something. They can't, for whatever reason, because of weather, because of pandemic, because of whatever the case may be, we want them to do something. So we feel good if they're online and the teacher is online with them. We just feel good about that. But from a pedagogical standpoint, it is not very effective. I'm not going to say it has no effect, and I'm not going to say that it has a negative effect. But the reality is, it's not effective, it's not efficient, and basically it's a waste of time. Online learning was not designed for young people, and is not designed for people who are not self-determined, who are not self-regulated, and who are not self-efficient. Most young people are not self-determined, self-regulated, and self-efficient. That's why we bring them to school to help them with that, right? That's one of the reasons why you're not an instructor. right?
Yeah.
Because instructors don't care about whether self-directed, self-determined. Educators do, right? So, that's the reason why. So yeah, going back to Hattie's, and I think what I'm gonna do later on is show you the list from a couple years ago. And because he's getting kind of older now, he might have stopped the research. Um, and hopefully someone continues it. Maybe I should continue his research and see what things are above the point four. In fact, Ray, can you give me my laptop, please? Bring me my leather bag. Let's see what variables on this list are above the point four or point four and above, and what variables are below. We'll check that out in a couple minutes. One of the things, interesting enough, because I was talking about cross-curricular learning, right? And teachers collaborating. The variables, they're not always the same from year to year. One thing must be on top and it might drop below. Why? Because the students change. We talked about that before, right? But what is consistently top five in all the years, every time I've looked at this research, is collaboration between teachers. We call it teacher advocacy. It's listed as collective teacher advocacy. Collective teacher advocacy. And these are scenarios where the teachers are team teaching, and they're planning together, and they're scope and sequencing together, they're benchmarking together, and they're tracking whether the students are meeting the destination that they set out as a team based on the learning standards. Okay? All right? All right? So collective teacher advocacy tends to be at the top of that list. All right? No, not my main laptop. The one in my leather bag. Plug that one back in. All right, let's go back to the basic lesson model. So we talked about warmer. I can't mention enough. Warmer. Don't start a lesson without a warmer. Okay. Question: can you micro teach in a warmer? Yes, you can. Well, it's micro teach. Scratch that. Can you do the teacher paradigm in a warmer? Yes, you can. Teacher, student, teacher. You can do that during a warmer. You absolutely can. Remember, warmers are short, sweet, and they must be what?
Brief.
It must be what?
Smart.
No, not smart. They must be what? Warmers don't have to be smart. They must be what? They must be, what's the word I kept on saying yesterday? Begins with an E.
Efficacy.
Easy. Warmers must be easy. Remember, you're targeting the warmer to that one student who may have missed the class that day.
Okay.
Or the student, no, what am I saying? That one student who's always absent, right? Who doesn't really know what's going on. You're targeting the warmer to that student, right? So if that student's being targeted, that means that warmer must be easy. Easy. Again, it does not have to be connected with the lesson, right? The warmer does not have to be connected. Why? Because the purpose of the warmer is to get the student out of survival mode, all right? The purpose of the warmer is to satisfy the reticular activating system, so the RES can send it to the amygdala, and that the amygdala is satisfied because the amygdala understands that there's something in it for me. Okay? All right. After the warmer, we're going to slide into what we call context and modeling. All right? This is where we get into the core part of our lesson. And then again, this lesson, I want to throw caution to the wind here. This lesson is for at the beginning of the unit when it has been determined that most of the learners don't know anything about the new content that you're teaching, right? So you're teaching a new concept, right? Okay, yeah, you're teaching a new concept. So they don't know a lot because as the unit gets deeper, you will change your lesson. Your lesson will have a different focus, right? So context and modeling.
Okay.
Context and modeling. Now I want you guys to give me the definition of context. What's the definition of context?
A situation where the student understands.
The situation the student. Thank you. Context is the situation the students understand. Is it the situation the teacher understands?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have
No,
to
no, no,
understand
no,
before
no,
you
no,
teach
no,
the student.
no. It's the situation the students understand.
Okay.
It's a situation the students can place themselves in. Not the teacher, not the parents, not the principal, not the textbook company. All right? Let's keep that in mind. All right? The educators move to the students don't move to the educators. Okay? All right, so context and modeling. Context, then going back to Krashen's CI, this is where we start to give inputs. And the comprehensible inputs must be what? Must be understandable and compelling. Must be interesting. Okay? Student interest is essential. If a student's not interested in the topic, it's going to go fly over their head. A lot of times they're not interested because they're not connected to the context. Okay? So we present the context to them. All right? So going back to our lesson yesterday, what do you do for exercise? I run. All right? So during the context setting, the teacher is modeling, showing them on the whiteboard, on the blackboard, on the smartboard, showing them exactly what she or he wants them to basically duplicate initially. So the first thing you do when you present information to learners, you're going to give them the context. Why is the context important? Because that's the situation that they understand, and that's where the problem lives. Right? I want a video game. Right? Desire. We all have desire, right? I want a video game, but I don't have any money for it. That's a problem, right? Right? We can label that context as desire. Desire. I desire. I want. We can call that unit I want. Right? That's the unit. I want. Right? And so I want in the I want unit, the context is the young gamer wants a video game. He wants the latest Mario Brothers game. However, his parents said, you know what? If you want this game, you have to find the money yourself. You have to earn the money yourself. Right? So then he has a problem. Right? So the teacher's going to set up the context like this. And then, we can set it up the videos, pictures, actions, role play, right? So they can understand the context and they can place themselves in that situation, right? Most kids can place themselves in a situation where they wanted something and their parents said, I'm not just going to give it to you, right? You have to earn it. You have to work for it. So they know many learners know what that means unless they're spoiled, right? But many learners can put themselves in that situation. And then you would model it. Again, the modeling might be through actions, right? It might be the examples you put on a board, right? Writing on a board, right? Reading could be modeling, watching a video, right? So you have to set context and model it. And it should be context that they know. All right. So I'm not going to give so I might not use, so if I'm using a video example for my learners, my older learners, I'm not going to say Mario Brothers because my older learners are probably not going to play Mario Brothers because they're 18-year-old. Maybe they do play, I don't know. But what's the game I know they're playing a lot? That they're going FIFA, right? They love that FIFA. Why? Because they love football, right? So I use the FIFA example. Oh yeah, FIFA 2026. Yeah, that's a good game. Oh yeah, I already beat that game, right? So now I got them into it. I got them interested, right? You know, and so I could bait them in, and then I can model whatever I want them to teach them via FIFA 2026. So I use that as context so they can understand what the problem that we have to solve, and I can model how to address that problem. Okay, after context and modeling. So in the basic lesson model, you have warmers, right? Get them out of survival mode. The second step, you writing this down? The second step is context and modeling. This is in your textbook, by the way, in your Smooth Move book.
Okay.
Context and modeling. This is where you set the situation that the students can place themselves in. And you're going to give them inputs that are understandable and what? Compelling. Understandable and compelling.
The first is warmer.
Warmer. Second is context and modeling. Context and modeling.
That should be appealing and understandable.
Right. Should be, the context is going to be understandable. A situation the learner understand or the learners understand. The comprehensible inputs are going to be understandable and compelling. They're going to be interested in it. The third thing that you're going to do after you set context in your model is you're going to start doing practice. You're going to practice it. You're going to give them the opportunity to practice. Okay? And so, and you're going to practice what was modeled. Again, what do you do for exercise? I run.
Okay.
What do you do for exercise? I run. So you give examples. That's the modeling. And then you give them opportunities to practice. That's the teacher, student, teacher, student, right? You give them opportunities to practice. However, how much time you have in your allotted time. Okay. Let's see, hopefully I have.
So please, can I ask a question?
Yes.
I have a friend, a kid that love grammar, does not like English and science. But when we got talking, he let her have love for science, but he still finding math very difficult.
Okay.
How will I make the child to, since I've been able to make him understand science?
Well, first of all, if he likes science, right? You have to let him know that you can't really do a lot with science if you don't understand math.
Okay.
That math and science go hand in hand because a lot of mathematical equations help explain what's happening in the scientific phenomenon.
Okay.
So you have to understand, you have to link in, you have to start off easy with basic addition. If I put one of this together and one of that together, I get this thing. So, like in chemistry. Okay. If I put H2O, right? So I need what? One hydrogen and two oxygen. I get more. That's addition, right?
Okay.
So, and then, you start off a simple concept like that and you build to more complicated concepts. But you always start off easy. You got to let him know that, hey, if you really enjoy math, if you really enjoy science, you're not going to really understand it a lot unless you start to really get into math, right? Because math explains science most of the time. Okay? So then once we do our controlled practice, so let's go back to what do we do for exercise.
And another one, sorry, sir. You use the warmer, and while teaching the methods, you have students who are being distracted. On their desk, they may have their Play-Doh, they may have.
You gotta, all that stuff needs to be moved away.
Yes. Even if you take away those things, maybe their pencil will be another means of
Yeah.
distraction and
Listen,
what will you do?
I will tell you that you have to have discipline first. You have to establish, and that remember what I said the first week, the first 2 weeks, the first month of school, must establish the learner profile. During that time, you also establish a discipline in the classroom, your class routines, class respect, and you have to establish that these things will not be tolerated, right? And you have to put the burden, on the parents, and on the parents. So that means you have to track. And the good thing about a lot of these schools here is they have video cameras in the classroom and things like this, and it show them, hey, look, this is what little Johnny is doing. You know, he's not an angel. I know you think he's an angel, but he's coming here and he's being destructive. You know, in order for the sake, right? A lot of them not gonna like it, but if you hold people accountable and you have evidence, the main thing is evidence, right? Because they're gonna say, no, not my baby, no, not my baby, my baby's perfect, not my baby, right? And then you show them that video camera, or you show them the evidence, or you say, you know, we did these things. Look at his notebook; he did nothing, and we did all these things, right? Again, the issue also is you can only do what you're going to do, because you're going to have some schools that's just always that doesn't want to.
Videos.
They don't want to show the parent the video. They don't want to show the kid that they want to give a toy to the kid when he does something bad. There's nothing you can do about that. That's the culture. We talked about that before, right? That's the culture, the climate of the school. That's the climate. You have to make the decision whether you want to work in that school or not, right? Because again, what I'm talking about in this course is idealistic, the way it should be, the best practices. I know for a fact that's not how it is in real world. And sometimes you simply cannot implement the things that I'm saying. Okay. Right? Like for instance, cross-curricular learning, it's extremely difficult here, right? Because most teachers here most people here working as teachers, they're not real teachers, they're not educators, right? They have pride. They know, they already know what they're doing, so they don't want to let their hand. They don't want to show other people they don't know, right? So they want to stay in their own little bubble, right? Because if I can just go in my classroom, close my door, and nobody knows that I know, and if I have that one day where I have an observation, I can give the perfect lesson, right, for that one day, right, and then go about my business again. So that's why a lot of people, they want to be teachers, because taking an educator goes back to Camaro de Velo. It's that possibility. The problem with possibilities, you have to expose yourself. You know, the best teachers don't want to expose themselves. Educators, we expose ourselves. Educators say, I don't know. Educators go on the board and say, oh, I forgot how to spell that. And don't feel bad about it. Hey, I'm human. I don't know. Is that does the I go before the E or the E? It's okay. And why? Because that is what learning is about. It's chaotic.
Yeah.
Right? It's chaotic. That's and being able to show learners that you don't have to be perfect, it creates a certain environment in your class where students now are willing to take risk. They're willing to take risks versus, you know who cheats the most? A students. A students cheat the most. Did you know that?
No.
The A student?
A students cheat the most. Why? Because they're the A student.
Yeah, they want to maintain.
They got to maintain.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes. A students do the most. If you want to see who's cheating, look at the A students. Because the C student is like, I'm a C student.
He
Oh,
knows better.
I'm a C student.
Really?
Yeah. You know, it's because the C student, he gets the 80, he go, yeah, baby, 80, 85, right? But the A student, he has to get that 95, 99, 100. So what happens is that the pressure continues.
Yeah.
He's going to take the most risk to cheat.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially as the course gets harder and harder, he's going to cheat more and more. That's how it is. Right?
Really?
So you have to create an environment where it's okay to to take risks. Now, if you have an environment where grades are everything, you're going to have cheaters. Trust me. You're going to have cheaters. Trust me. You're just going to. Whether if you have a more, that's the benefit of of a kind of an instruction environment where you have instructor, because it's either pass fail. There's no grade really assigned to it. If I'm teaching you how to ride a car, you don't get a A or B or a C. You passed or you failed.
Yeah.
And if you failed, we did a class over again until you pass. So that's less likelihood of people cheating that scenario because there's no grade and there's no esteem, right? Pride is a deadly sin. Pride is one of the 7 deadly sins, right? So what happens is, when, oh, my kid is so smart. Oh, he's so smart. No, you got to live up to that because you can't come home now with the B now.
Yeah.
The C student, he comes home with the B. Everybody like, yeah, my man. You know what I mean? And the B students, you'll see them. They're normally the students who are practical. The B students, right? They are more pragmatic. They tend to get along with other students better. And because the A students just has that pressure, so they tend to be ruder, tend to be more standoffish, tend to be more arrogant, right? Because they have this pressure on them to be the top student. Okay, so because most of the time you have teachers who are encouraging that, right? And then they award that. Look at him, he got an A. Everybody needs to be like him. Da 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 da. A. Honor roll. Oh, he's so great. He's so smart, right? That's pressure. Whereas the educator awards, hey man, Johnny got a 75. Because Johnny be getting 65. He got 75 this time. And award everyone for their successes. Right? Because at the end of the day, the reality is what? Your GPA, your grade don't mean anything. I'm 50 years old. I've worked in government, I worked in private sector, I worked in university, I ran my own business. No one's ever asked me one time in my adult life what my GPA was in college.
Yeah.
Why?
Not one.
They're doing it for.
Not what, because it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a C student, B student, A student. And what we find is the A student really doesn't, when it comes to applying, he doesn't really apply any differently than a B student or a C student does. Now, don't get me wrong. You have some people who are extremely talented.
Yeah.
Right? They're just talented. Most people I know 3 people who are Mensa. You know Mensa?
Mensa, this is the Mensa.
This is the IQ test, right? You can take an IQ test. You heard of an IQ test before, right? So there's a test you can take. It's called IQ test, and it measures your your IQ.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I think if you score 130 or higher, you're genius level.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know 3 people. I've met 3 people in my life that I know who scored 130 or higher. Right? They're genius level.
That was over 200.
Huh?
Was it over 200?
No, 130. Oh. So if you score over 130, because the average score, it all depends on your country too. Like the average American scores like a 105, a 100, 105, something like this.
Over 130.
And then if you're really good, if you score like a 110, 115, 120 is like really, really good. Like 130 is genius level, right? My point is, I know 3 people who scored genius level. You know what their jobs are? All 3 of them are waiters in restaurants.
What happened?
All 3 of them are, because they're not able to take that genius and apply it to a real world scenario.
They were just academic.
It's just strictly academic. So they can fit. See, academia and the real world, they don't match.
Yeah. Exactly.
They don't match at all. So you could take somebody who was a D student, And he comes out to be a multimillionaire
Yeah.
Exactly.
because while he was sitting in that class, he understood a lot of the times this don't make any sense. This doesn't really help me in the real world, right? So I don't really care. And then you have the B students who say, look, I know this is the kind of, but I'm gonna still play the game, right? But I don't really care that much, right? And then you have some A students who so
Dedicated.
into it, dedicated, because they've been told get the highest grade, be the smartest students, get the scholarships, and then they don't find out until they get into their adulthood that it didn't really matter. It didn't really matter at all, right? Because a lot of them don't end up becoming doctors. They don't become lawyers. Right? Because again, if you have a scenario where everybody's cheating, it gets really cutthroat. And how cutthroat are you going to get? You ever seen a room full of really smart people in a room? It gets really cutthroat, right? So more practical people, more business people, they don't ask that question. What was your GPA? They want to know, can you work well with people, right? Can you solve problems, right? You know how to talk to people, right? How well is your communication? Is your communication skills? That's what they're concerned with. Are you self-regulated, right? Are you motivated outside of? Are you intrinsically motivated instead of extrinsically? Because a lot of smart people are not intrinsically motivated. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Motivation tomorrow. A lot of smart people are not intrinsically motivated; they're extrinsically motivated, right? But again, I'll talk about that tomorrow. So we got context in mind. We have control practice. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to do. So what do you do for exercise? All right. Right. All right. All right. So I can say, what do you do for exercise? And I go through the model, right? What do you do for exercise? I run. What do you do for exercise? I run. What do you do for All right. I go through the paradigm, teacher, student, and then I can add on to it. How often do you run? Yeah. I say
Every day.
3 times a week. All right. And then I would go through the whole scenario again. What do you do for exercise? I run. How often do you run? 3 times a week. And I keep on. I'm building. I'm expanding the conversation.
Yeah.
Right. I can do it again. I can do. Where do you run? Right. At the school. I run. I run on the school track. I run on the school's track. Right? And I go through the whole paradigm again. What do you do for exercise? I run. How often do you run? 3 times a week. Where do you run? On the school track. Right? So I'm building, right? And then after I do run, because that's not the only answer that people are gonna give, right? So now I can, as we move deeper into the lesson, I can do this. All right. Now I can have my little cards. I can't find my original cards, so I gotta laminate these. So I can do. What do you do for exercise?
I run. Okay. I play tennis.
How often do you play tennis?
3 times a week
Where do you play tennis?
at the school playground.
At the tennis court, at the tennis court, at the school's tennis court, right? So now if I'm teaching somebody English, now this is iteration, right?
Yeah.
So now I can also do this. That's run. So you can have these cards. I thought I had them, but can't find them, so I was gotta laminate them later. So I'll just laminate these. I laminate them, and then on the back I have these. So what happens is, once they get this core dialogue, all right, they can then expand because I can give all of them different cards.
Okay.
So I'll give you a card and you put with your buddy, and then I can have them switch cards.
Okay.
So this is a card for Ron. So then I can say this one. What do you do for exercise?
I play football
How often do you play football?
3 times a week
Where do you play football?
at the back.
See? And then and so they all have these different cards. So now I'm expanding, that's called vocabulary expansion. Vocabulary expansion. So that's the next one. After control practice is vocabulary expansion. Alright. So that's in a language art scenario. If I mean a language acquisition scenario, you can do it for math. With math problems, you can do it with word problems. You can do it with science. It all depends what your lesson is. You can cater this to whatever your lesson is. And the key is, yes, in math class, talking. Talking is essential in any subject. You do not want to have your students just sitting there and watching you lecture. I see so many teachers. Here's another issue. A lot of people don't want to be educators. They don't want to be K-12 educators. They don't want to be teachers because, oh, you're just a teacher. Just a teacher. Oh, they're just a teacher. And a lot of people feel ashamed. They think it's not a good job. It's an excellent job. I'll say it's the best career outside of being a parent. Being a parent is the number one job that you can ever have.
The parents don't have time for their kids.
Yeah, I'm being a good parent. And then number two is being a teacher, right? Being a teacher, being an educator is amazing. And we should be proud of it. And if we're proud of it, then we can start demanding the money, right? But people are not proud of it, so they take the little peanuts that people give you, right? Professors make good money. And why? Because I'm a professor, so they demand the money. Right? They demand the money because I'm a professor. And what happens is a lot of teachers try to think that they're a professor. So they go into classrooms and they start to lecture like they're at the university. Sit down, be quiet. Hello, my name is Mr. Roberts, and I'm your teacher. I want you to be quiet. Take notes. Everyone have pen and paper. Take notes of what I say. Yada, 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 yada. Right? That's not teaching. Right? Because university is not pedagogy. University is a different type of transaction called andragogy. Why? Because that person is what? The people that in university are what? Self-determined. They're supposed to be anyway. Self-determined, self-efficient, self-regulative. Because they're university.
Yeah, they're adults.
They're adults, right? And they're supposed to be the best of the best,
Yeah.
right? Especially if it's a big-time school. So you treat them differently, right? Because they're supposed to already have that mindset of exploration, academic exploration. We know that a lot of times that's not the case. So a lot of professors, they realize who's in their class and go, oh no, I gotta go back to pedagogy, right? Which you should do. And I do it all the time. I tell people that all the time. We don't talk teaching. That's called a university. But those kids, They still in the third grade.
Yeah.
They still in the third grade.
Really?
Yeah.
They can, right?
Mentally, emotionally, academically, they're in the third grade.
So how do they?
Yeah, I tell Steve, I got a 19-year-old man. Can I use the bathroom? Son, you're 19. Why are you asking me to use the bathroom? Get your butt up and go to the bathroom if you need to go to the bathroom. You would never see that in an American school where a 19-year-old asks the professor, can he use the bathroom?
Yeah.
You just get up and go. But that's the mindset, right? And it's not just a respect thing. It's not about respect. It's a mindset thing. Because if he's asking me to go to the bathroom, then he's also asking me to hold his hand and do other things. That means he's not self-determined. He's not self-efficient. He's not
I
self-reliant.
think in our country, it does just work out on a teacher. And I mean in university level. When your lecturer is talking, you have to sit no matter the bathroom or whatever. If you
I think
walk out,
that's a bad thing. Any at the university level, a professor should, if a student wants, I'll tell you what in the States, and I know in most Western countries, sometimes students don't even come to class, right? Because students look at the syllabus, right? And if they, especially if they know the professor, or if they found out about the professor, you look at the syllabus, they rarely come to class. They rarely come to class because everything is in the textbook or the reading, whatever reading. Some professors throw a curveball, and I had professors who would never assess you on anything that was in the book, but his lectures. They force you to go to class, right? But my point is, it's two different types, styles, and what happens is you have a lot of people who try to act like professors when they teach in the third grade, or they teach in the fifth grade, or they teaching 11th or 12th grade. You're not a professor. You're an educator, right? In many ways, you're more qualified, or you should be more qualified than the professor, because most professors didn't have to go to school to be a professor. They're content experts. See, that's another point I want to. In pedagogy, you don't have to be a content expert. Like for instance, I'm a licensed in America. I'm a licensed 7th to 12th grade educator, a language arts teacher. That's what my license is in, 7th to 12th grade language arts. However, I have taught middle school math. Why? And to be honest with you, I don't like math. To be honest, I'm not that much in love with math, right? I'm not that much in love with math. But I've taught 7th grade math, and I did a pretty decent job because I don't need to be a content expert. I need to know how to apply teaching pedagogy, right? No, not to say I don't need to. I need to know some things about math. Don't get me wrong, but I don't have to be in love with math, and I don't need to be an expert in math. As long as I know the content that I'm teaching, right? And I know the principles behind teaching and learning transactions, that's all I need to know. Teachers don't, the worst educators, the worst professors I ever had were people who were experts in that particular field. Because they tend to talk over. They can't relate, right? Because they're an expert and they so used to being around other people who know what they talk about and use the lingo, right? It's better to have a teacher who doesn't know a lot about the subject, because then what happens is you guys learn together. And that's the greatest situation, where the educator and the learners are learning together as one, and they're exploring as one, right? But in many cases, most teachers educators is able to say, I don't know. A teacher is not going to say, I don't know. A teacher is going to act like they know everything, because the teacher is the sage on the stage, right? I am the purveyor of all knowledge in this classroom. I know everything. You even have to ask me to use the bathroom. You have to ask me to breathe, right? I know everything. I am the queen, the king, right? I know it all, right? That's a teacher-based approach. Student-based approach requires educators who say, you know what, guys, there may be some things. I know some things about this topic fairly well, but there's gonna be some. You might have a question throughout this course, throughout this class that I don't know, and we're gonna learn. We're gonna find out the answer together, and we're gonna solve the problem together. Totally different approaches, right? So going back to vocabulary expansion, so you have your core dialogue. This is what you call your core dialogue. And then you're able to expand from your core dialogue. And again, when you have something like this is also a grammar point. You can make grammar points, right? There's a mechanics lesson, punctuation lessons, right? 3 times a week. Is that a sentence, guys? No, that's not a sentence. However, it's a statement that we use in every day. So then you can give you have a conversation about speech, because this is speech versus recorded speech or recorded when you write.
You can also use
right?
as clause of phrase. Clause of phrase.
Clause of phrase. Explain that to me.
Clause is a full stop.
Oh, you said clause and phrase. Oh, yeah. So you can show them the difference between a clause and a phrase. Absolutely. So here would be a phrase, right?
Yeah.
3 times a week is a phrase, whereas I run is a clause.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, absolutely. So it's a great example, and you can tell them, yeah, in our speech, a lot of time we actually use phrases, and that's okay. However, when we write things down in this class, everything needs to be in a sentence.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Sentence is not a clause.
I know.
Right? Clause, because you can have, well, we'll talk about it in grammar, but you have 2 types of clauses, right? What are they?
Compound.
No, that's a sentence. You have 2 types of clauses.
And
Okay.
depends.
No, I'm sorry. Well, a compound sentence is not a clause, it's a sentence that has what? 2 clauses.
Clauses.
All right. But what's the difference between a clause and a sentence?
Sometimes a clause is not complete.
Yes.
But it's
And that's called a what?
something.
Dependent clause. So a clause is only a clause is a
part of
it has
the
to have
sentence.
a clause has to have a subject and a verb.
And an object.
No, doesn't need to have an object. This doesn't have an object. It's a clause.
Okay.
It is also a sentence. All right. So this is a sentence and it's also a clause. It's an independent clause. It has a subject and a verb and it's a complete thought. But if I said, if I run, it's still a clause, but now it's not a complete thought. So now it's an independent clause, and now I need a complete thought to finish it. If I run, I will. If I run, I will get sick. Okay, right. So you got 2 clauses here.
Yeah. If I
One is a dependent clause, an incomplete thought, and one's an independent clause,
I would guess
a complete thought, and it forms what type of sentence?
compound sentence.
No, this is not compound. It forms a complex sentence.
Complex.
Complex. Because you have a dependent clause and an independent clause.
Okay.
A compound sentence is 2 independent clauses. I will run and let's make it better. I will run so no, that's actually complex too. I will run but I will run but I will lose. I don't know, I can't think of something. I'll run but I will lose. Or I'll run but I will get tired. Here, I will run is a complete thought. I will lose is a complete thought.
Yeah.
In a compound sentence, you need a coordinating conjunction called the coordinating conjunctions. We know what they are. They're fanboys. right? For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, right? And these coordinate the relationship between the two clauses. But this is an independent clause. This is an independent clause. So that's the difference. This is a complex sentence because this is a dependent clause, and that's an independent clause. Okay. But we'll have a grammar boot camp day. I'll make you. I'm gonna teach you not to teach grammar. All right. So here, this again pointing out that going to the board, you can show grammar points. You can show them, and you can have conversations with them. Also, you're expanding the vocabulary. You can also do something like this. You can do many things. You can say how often you can do this. You can erase this and say, all right, what if I was talking to a group of people? What would it be?
Collective, no.
How often do they run?
They.
Or how often does your group run? Right? Right. So again, expanding the vocabulary and showing them that vocabulary is not set, that it's able to be expanded. So that's the reason why on yesterday when you said, I think you said what do you do for exercise? You said I skip. What do you say? I jog. I think you said I jog. I said no. Stick with the script because later on you're gonna have the opportunity to expand. But we want to make sure that the core dialogue is there, that they understand the core dialogue. Because if they understand the core dialogue, then they're naturally going to naturally be able to expand. Why will they naturally be able to expand? Because Chomsky tells us in what? Universal grammar theory, that once the pattern is there, once the learner understands the pattern, they will naturally grammar. We naturally grammar. All right. But if you hear it enough, right, you don't have to go to a school to learn a language. You learn your native tongue by going to school? No, you learn it by listening to your parents and your neighbors and your relatives and your siblings. Right? Okay. So right now, for the basic lesson model, we have
The
warmer, context and modeling,
practice,
control practice,
vocabulary expansion.
And then after that, we have listening and reading. This is where you take it a step further, continuing the context, and you give learners something to listen to. All right? And we'll go over teaching listening later. There's a whole couple hours.
Is it part of it teaching listening?
So you're going to give them a listening opportunity. And I'm going to show you and teach you. I'm going to show you how to do that later, not today.
Sorry, this teaching and listening. I have students. Yeah, they want to say what to teach, but they want to also go out of content. Teacher, yesterday my mom said they will bring in stories and
let them do it.
And keep listening to them.
Let them do it.
You have to.
Let them do it.
Really?
If they're engaging you on the lesson, just let them do it.
But if it's out of the lesson?
No, let them do it. So you control it because you want them to. You want to get them. Listen, you want to encourage them to speak.
Okay.
But
so don't send mixed messages.
They all of them want to speak at the same time.
But that's where the routines come in. All right, guys, one person at a time. Right now, Muhammad speaking. Okay. Then when I point to you, or when you have, and that's where you gotta have your routine. Maybe you have a little ball, or stick, or not stick,
okay,
but something, and then you can't speak unless you have this thing in your hand,
Okay.
right?
Let me say, for example, I run and you ask her, okay, Fatima, can you? It's your turn, for example. They say, teacher, yesterday my mom said I should not be running because my little brother.
But if you modeled it, and I know this to be true because I've done it a million times. If you model it the way I did it yesterday, they're not going to do that because they're going to follow
The modeling.
the modeling. That's why it's important that you model it 5 times to do the same things that I did yesterday. What do you do for exercise? I run. 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 What do you do for exercise? So when they see, because again, your brain is a pattern-seeking device. Your brain is automatically want to follow the pattern. So unless there's something mentally wrong with the child, right, they're going to naturally follow the pattern. But you have to model it appropriately. That's why I don't say, Sarah, you're next. I go, and. And I do it every time because that's a part of the pattern. So when it's Sarah time, she's going to follow the pattern. She's going to definitely follow the pattern. Her brain's going to force her to do it. All right. But if you start asking open-ended questions, or you don't, or you yourself break away from the pattern, then you're going to open the door for her to do what? Inject a story, because now you didn't follow the pattern. So it's important for you to practice a pattern and follow the pattern, because a lot of times when students don't follow the pattern, it's because you broke the pattern. Make sense? They're gonna track with you. Trust me. So you gotta make sure that you're following your pattern, and and if somebody breaks the pattern, you can't let the student break the pattern. Same thing I did with you yesterday. I didn't. Remember when I did mine, I didn't say anything. I pointed, and.
Yeah.
And when you said jog, I said,
This.
okay. I didn't say follow. I said, that's why that's why it should be written.
Okay.
And they're gonna say, oh, okay, I need to say I run. Okay. But the moment you let somebody say I jog and you keep on going, then you open the door for other people to start breaking the pattern too. Right? Trust me, it works. And it works everywhere. You just gotta be confident enough to do it. So after teaching listening, we do teaching reading. Right. Or it could be teaching. Let me say this. It could be I normally do teaching listening, and then from the listening, teaching reading. Okay. But there's also teaching speaking. Speaking is integrated in the listening activity and is integrated in the reading activity. Okay. And then, so it's actually listening, reading, writing. Now you got, also remember, depends on how much time you have in your course. Because now you got 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you're in the 5th thing. You might not have enough time. So you might just do a listening activity, or you might just do the reading activity the next day. It depends on how much time you have. All right. So time is always a factor. Okay, keep that in mind. So it could be teaching listening, teaching reading, or it could be teaching writing, depending on the situation. Keeping in mind that speaking activities are going to be integrated in the listening and reading, because we never teach speaking by itself. Speaking is always integrated, and we'll have a conversation about that when we get to that part of the lesson in the next couple of days. And then the last thing is a communicative activity.
What?
A communicative activity. This is an activity where they now fly on their own for a lot with limited instruction from you. This is really student based, right? So you notice from the context of modeling, you're doing most of the talking. But as you move deeper into the lesson, your teacher talk decreases. Okay? Until you get to the communicative activity, it should be ran by the students. You give them instructions, and then they're doing something where they as a community are speaking to one another and also practicing in an uncontrolled way or less or in a lesser controlled way. Let's say it that way. Whatever the core objectives were. So, for instance, if you were doing teaching reading, they might do a run and read activity. All right, you set up a run and read activity where you have you put a desk at the end. You put them in groups. You put a desk at the end of the class, and there's like a story they have to read, and they stand in line in groups, and they answer a question. So they read a story. Maybe you're teaching skimming and scanning, right? So they'll run. So let's say this group you have 10 kids in your class. So you have two groups, A and B, 5 in each group, and there's 5 questions, and there's 2 tables with the same reading opportunity. So the first person, you blow the whistle, first person go run. He's looking for the answer for the first question. Once he finds the answer for the first question, he writes it down. He runs back, get in the back of the line. The second person runs, get the answer to the second question. So until they finish all 5 questions, and whoever finished the question first are the quote unquote winners. That's what we call run and read. I'll demonstrate that later when I do a lesson. I'm gonna do a lesson for you guys. All right, but that is your basic lesson model. Okay, that's your basic lesson model. Warmer, always. What's the point? What's the purpose of the warmer?
To bring back, grab their attention,
Grab their attention,
especially for the non.
but more importantly, to get them out of what?
Out of
Non-thinking.
Survival mode.
yeah.
Get them out of survival mode. Make sure the RES sends that information to the amygdala, sends that information to the frontal lobe. Then you have context and modeling. What happens during context and modeling?
We appeal for understanding.
Right. So you want to make sure you're going to give them a context that they can put themselves in, a situation that they understand, and then you're going to model whatever the concept is. And again, it doesn't matter if it's language arts, it doesn't matter if it's math class, history class. You're going to model that, right? You're going to model that, okay? And you're going to do a lot of board work. That's where your board work comes in, all right? And then 3 is what?
Practice.
Control practice. Why is control? Because the teacher is guiding every aspect. All right. In this control practice, think about the teacher paradigm: teacher, 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 student, student, teacher, student, student, and then as a group. All right. They should be speaking. And again, this is speaking. I don't care if it's history class, math class, science class, whatever the case may be. You want students to speak. And it's good that they hear the repetition over and over again. You want them to speak. If you're teaching them how to reduce fractions, have them talk it through to each other. They can learn more from each other than they can learn from you. And then this also avoids what? The people in the back of the class doing what? Fighting, fleeing you by sleeping on their phones, not participating. You're getting everyone to participate. Okay? This is how you avoid that, those 3 or 4 learners, students who are just sleeping, daydreaming, on their phone, playing games, and not participating in class. All right? You bring in everybody in the fold during the control practice. And then vocabulary expansion is what?
And then kind of when you bring up a concept, you now create a room for more.
Create more rooms for expansion. Yeah. So in a language arts scenario, we're expanding the vocabulary, the lexis, right? What is lexis? I didn't go over the word lexis. Lexis is word chunks. All right. Later on, we'll go over co-location, co-text, context, co-text, and all that stuff later. But lexes, you expand into lexes, word chunks like phrases. All right. In a math scenario, this is where you might introduce word problems. Right. Word problems in math. Word problems are awesome because now they have to solve a problem. Right. That's not in traditional equation form. It's in a word form. Okay. So that brings math into a real world context, a real world scenario where they have to take a problem, a real world problem, and use math to solve that problem. Word problems are awesome in math. I don't see a lot of teachers really utilizing word problems, and it's almost like teachers are scared of them because it's almost like you get one. The student gets one of them at the end of the, you get one of them. You know what I mean? Like, don't be afraid of word problems. Just start off easy with an easy one, and then increase the difficulty. Right? Start off easy one with maybe there's only 2 or 3 sentences, right? And then as they get more comfortable, then you can give them longer word problems. You don't start them off with like a 20 sentence word problem. You know what I mean? Start them off with like a 2 sentence word problem, 3 sentence word problem, and the language is easy to understand. It's direct, right? And they can apply simple equation to fix the problem, right? To solve the problem. And then as they become more comfortable, you can give them longer, more complicated, more complex word problems. All right. But so in a math scenario, that's the case. Science, history. I look at science and history. They're just language arts. Science is just language arts. Science is just critical thinking, reading and critical thinking. That's all science is. So when I hear somebody say, "Oh, I love to read, but I hate science," that don't make any sense. Because in order to understand science, you have to what? Read. Like you have to read, and then there's a little bit more. You're thinking on a critical level, and then you're also maybe applying other principles, logic, reasoning, mathematics into the fold. So when it comes to same thing with history, right? History is just reading. Requires reading, critical thinking, deep thinking, logic, right? So when somebody says, "I'm not good at history, but I know how to read," no, you're just not interested in history, and maybe the history teacher is boring, which a lot of times history teachers are boring, right? You got to find a way to make it interesting. Like, so we were talking about the kid that I tutor. I didn't show him some boring video. I found a video with South Park where they use, South Park, the cartoon. There's a cartoon called South Park. So they used the South Park characters as, Hitler and soldiers. And so it made it interesting. It was animated. Got him interested. If I showed him some National Geographic with some old dude talking about World War II, he's going to fall asleep and be disinterested. Okay. Yeah. Let's take a break. I'll give you a 10-minute break because I gave you a lot. When we come back, we're going to go over this lesson plan.